Yeah, maybe.
I had this class was specifically designed to talk about this. I haven't experienced it that much in the previous class. They were more focused on teaching us the theories. I think it's a debate that's going on in the larger, like the whole scientific community. There are not specific classes, but we were advised to, for example, look at writing as a journalist, scientific articles, and basically they just say practice to communicate. That is always the main thing that you can do. But to say that they have specific classes, I'm not sure. The teacher who gave us these lectures, he was from research. Like independent research organization. That's why he came to talk to us. So I think they probably have some classes in there, but we haven't gotten any at Utrecht so far, except for these two.
I think one of the things that perhaps can, because you said, architects and planners have a different language than researchers, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to find ways to explain this and vocabulary to explain this. And one of the things that we came up with was different communities of practice who have different worldviews. So worldviews comes from sociology. And some tribes, they have different worldviews because they see the world totally different from another tribe, for example.
Yeah.
And that's the same with researchers, I think. They see the world in a totally different way. So they form a community of practice, and therefore they will ask very specific questions. So a question that will arise in architecture will not arise.
Yeah.
But I think that the unifying thing between all these fields is the question, actually.
Yeah.
So you have to have a question.
Yeah, I agree.
And I personally don't believe in a designer that doesn't have a question. It's, what do you want to answer exactly?
Yeah, I guess the point I am trying to make is that I think you're right, and I think. Especially as architects, we have a very good, but we are focused on the specific side of architecture, like everything that has to do with architecture. But I think sometimes we don't use the literature that is available, not maybe because we're not aware of that it exists. And that is the one point. And the other point, I think, is that if you want to communicate with scientists, they have their own world and their own, I like to say, etiquette. It's like comparing it to the golf tournament. You first have to get your paper in order to get on the golf course. And I think it's the same with both design. You have to get a certain skill set to be able to participate in the whole world of architecture, and you have to get a certain skill set to participate in research. And you can try to do it without it, but they have their own ways of doing things, and you're not going to succeed. Especially with the grants and the money, you really need to know how they function in order to be able to participate in it. And I think it's just that you have to be aware of those different skill sets, and that you have to acquire them. That's the only thing. But I think then when you can do that, you can use both knowledges to actually make maybe better research than if you would just have had one. Because I think the way that you learn to think multidisciplinary is very valuable for us, what we can do as designers when you change the research.
But this view is not uncontroversial. So this two communities perspective, it's mainly something that applies to the academia. A lot of the literature, if you look, particularly not as much at architecture, but rather at planning practice, urban planning practice, is that it's much more hybrid, and that people fulfill different roles that is not that sharp, and that this experience of different languages and different worldviews is actually in planning practice itself less sharp. It is sharp like that if you put the grand theories of design versus the grand theories of geography. But as soon as you kind of delve into really the planning process, how teams work in in an institutional setting, these kinds of things, morph into each other a bit. And
you missed mine because I made a typology of these. So there is a changing hats person, a person who can operate as a designer and as a researcher according to the environment. There is, for example, or somebody who tries to bring the design as a valuable contribution to research, or somebody who only tries to validate the design through scientific underpinning. So there are various ways where these communities are. They're not. I don't think it's possible even to have.
No. But in that sense, I find it interesting. The very first thing almost you said was, what I wanted to do, why I wanted to go into geography, is I wanted to start earlier in the process and deliver the knowledge too.
Yeah.
Which actually holds a supposition in how this relation works, while actually this relation between research and design in practice, it can be quite different actually, with research used by politicians actually to justify a certain choice instead of informing a choice. There's quite a number of elegant models developed in the knowledge utility. This is a specific field of study, knowledge utility or knowledge application, where you have different kinds of models, and these are three of those maybe, how that relation works. Most of the work is done actually in the relation between research and policy, and less between research and design. That's true. But a lot of the principles that are defined in the relation between research and policy actually also do apply to the research and design relationship. Sometimes it's also depicted as a kind of research, policy, and design triangle. This is the classic model actually of urban design and planning of the 1920s in the Netherlands, the unity of town planning. So it has a whole history actually of how this relation has developed and how it has developed over the years, and which had more prominence in certain ages of planning.
Yeah, and I do have to say that when I decided to go into this master, this was a pretty, simple decision. I just figured that I like to do that, so I went to do the master that would get me there. And since then, I have to say my view has changed. I don't even know what I'm going to do after my master yet. I'll just see what happens.
Are you satisfied? No.
With this, yes, I'm very happy with the new master.
So,
I like it a lot, and for me, it's a lot better. In design, sometimes I felt I didn't really know what to do, and in this case, sometimes it's difficult. I still have to make long hours, but I do know more of the result because I can connect those two things, and that's actually what I like, to make the connection that's not always visible to other people. So no, it's been a very good experience, but it's not what I had intended with when I started. Coming back on what you said about the different languages, and one of the things that I actually encountered, I had a discussion in the beginning of the master with my teacher about planning, and he said some things, and I thought, what? I don't understand. It's not at all what we define as planning. So we were talking about it for a while, and then he said, what kind of planning are you talking about? I'm like, what kind of planning? There's only one kind of planning, and that's what we're talking about. And he said, no, there's one that their side is more governance, and we're more the design side. And those are very different things with different criteria.
But they should
use the same word. And you just don't know.
Planning is often defined as actually the preparatory process
before
making a decision on an intervention.
So they actually probably call it in Dutch planologie, and then in Dutch they call the other one maybe regionaal or some regional design. So you could differ them, but just to be talking about that, you just don't know, and that's kind of funny, and that's how you realize that even though you might know both sides, and even though there might be models how you can communicate, it's still very difficult. You really have to know. You just have to be aware of the differences between them.
Yeah, I think being aware